Imagine a digital watch alarm just like beeping from beneath the dirt in your backyard.
Oh, man.
Yeah, a faint, muffled electronic pulse coming from under the soil every single day at exactly 4:2 a.m.
That is just bone-chilling.
It really is. And now imagine law enforcement actually knowing about this and doing, well, absolutely nothing for 20 years.
Right.
I mean, this isn't a pitch for some psychological horror movie. This was the actual reality of the Kristin Smart case.
Yeah, a case that has literally been frozen in time for 3 decades.
Exactly. But it has just, in May of 2026, yielded a massive and frankly grim update. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a story that has haunted California's Central Coast since 1996, and we are unpacking a mountain of material for you.
We really are. Our source stack today is dense because to really understand what just happened in Arroyo Grande, we're pulling from hard news updates, places like the Associated Press, SFIST, and KTLA-5, and we are parsing through official press releases from the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney, synthesizing some deep dive background from Wikipedia, and honestly, reading through real-time public reactions from a dedicated Reddit thread.
Yeah, the Reddit thread where people have been tracking like every microscopic development in this case for years.
Exactly.
So our mission for you today is to unpack this May 2026 search of a property tied to the man convicted of murdering Kristin.
Right.
We're going to examine how an entire family allegedly conspired to hide her body, moving it like some morbid chess piece for decades.
It's so disturbing.
It is. And we're going to look at the mechanics of how a single independent podcast managed to break a cold case that, honestly, institutional law enforcement couldn't solve for over 20 years.
Yeah, the breaking news really places us squarely in May 2026. San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's deputies just wrapped up this multi-day search at a home in Arroyo Grande.
And that home belongs to Susan Flores, right?
Exactly. And for anyone familiar with the case, that name instantly sets off alarm bells. She is the mother of Paul Flores, the man finally convicted in 2022 of murdering Kristin Smart.
Wow.
And the science utilized in this recent search is, frankly, a massive leap forward from the investigations they were doing in the 1990s.
Because they didn't just walk the property with cadaver dogs this time, did they?
No, not at all. They brought in ground-penetrating radar, and they brought in forensic scientists who specialize entirely in human decomposition.
That's intense.
It is. Sheriff Ian Parkinson actually confirmed that rigorous soil tests detected specific chemical compounds in the dirt that are exclusively related to a decomposing human body.
Exclusively. Like there's no other explanation.
Right. But here is the absolute gut punch of this update.
Okay.
The remains are no longer there.
God. It's like a chemical ghost, you know?
Yes, exactly like that.
It's like a footprint in wet cement. The person is gone, but the undeniable mark remains. But wait, if the physical body isn't actually there to be recovered, does this chemical soil test change anything legally? Or is it just like pouring salt in the wound for the Smart family?
Well, it undeniably deprives the Smart family of the physical closure they fought for. I mean, they still cannot bring Kristin home to be properly laid to rest, which is tragic.
Yeah.
But from an investigative standpoint, it is a monumental breakthrough.
Really? How so?
Because it provides hard, irrefutable scientific validation of the prosecution's long-held theory that Kristin's body was moved, and potentially moved multiple times, by the Flores family to evade law enforcement.
Ah, I see.
This isn't just a theory anymore. The chemistry literally proves the location was used to conceal a felony. Let me explain the science behind this because it's fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying.
Yeah, please do.
When a human body decomposes in the earth, it doesn't just disappear. It undergoes a process of liquefaction. It leaches specific fatty acids, amino acids, and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, deep into the soil matrix.
Wow.
Right. It permanently alters the soil pH and the local microbial community. So forensic soil scientists can actually test for 9-hydrogen reactive nitrogen, which creates a highly specific signature.
So even if they move the body later?
Exactly. Even if you exhume the bones and remove the physical body decades later, you cannot erase that chemical signature from the earth.
It's like spilling pure bleach on a Duke carpet. Even if you immediately soak up all the liquid, the chemical reaction has already permanently altered the fabric.
That is a perfect analogy. The soil underneath Susan Flores' yard was fundamentally and irreversibly changed.
Which means when the soil tests in 2026 confirm a body was moved, it validates a horrifying pattern for investigators because they've seen this exact phantom grave signature before, haven't they?
Yes, they have. We just have to look 5 years earlier to the 2021 search of another Flores family property.
The father's house.
Right, the home of Paul's father, Ruben Flores. During that 2021 search warrant at Ruben's house, ground-penetrating radar identified a distinct anomaly under the back deck.
Under the deck.
Yeah. And when investigators excavated the site, they found a recently filled-in void in the dirt, measuring roughly 6 feet long by 4 feet wide.
Literally the exact dimensions of a makeshift grave.
Exactly. And within the soil of that void, forensic teams found traces of degraded human blood.
Oh my God.
Now, you have to understand how blood degrades in soil over 25 years. The DNA structures completely break down due to moisture, microbial activity, and temperature fluctuations.
So they couldn't get a perfect DNA match.
Right, making traditional DNA matching nearly impossible. But the hemoglobin markers remain, so the implication was staggering. Kristin had likely been buried under Ruben's deck for years.
Decades.
Yeah. Then, as the investigation heated up and the podcast brought new scrutiny, she was hastily dug up and relocated.
Which is exactly why Ruben was tried alongside his son, Paul, in 2022, right? He was charged as an accessory after the fact.
He was. But he was acquitted.
Which is wild.
It is. And looking at the mechanics of the courtroom, you can really see the massive blind spot in our legal system.
Because they didn't have the body.
Precisely. Without the physical body, the defense successfully argued there was a lack of definitive physical evidence tying Ruben specifically to the act of hiding Kristin Tree. The blood was degraded. The void was empty.
So the jury felt there was reasonable doubt.
Yeah, regarding his personal legal culpability, even if the circumstantial evidence was just overwhelming. The verdict exposes the immense difficulty of proving a cover-up when the perpetrators have a 25-year head start to destroy the primary evidence.
And that completely fuels the intense public outrage surrounding this case. I mean, reading through the Reddit sources we pulled, specifically the Unresolved Mysteries community, the sheer frustration is palpable.
Oh, absolutely.
The community anecdotes shared by people who actually rented from the Flores family over the years are chilling. Like, I brought up the 4:20 a.m. watch alarm earlier.
Right, the tenant report.
Yeah, a tenant renting from the Flores family reported hearing a faint, muffled beeping coming from under the ground in the backyard every single day at 4:20 a.m.
Which is horrifying.
And that was the exact time Kristin Smart set her alarm to wake up for her early morning job.
It's just, you can't make that up. And another tenant found an earring on the property that closely matched the description of one Kristin owned.
Wait, really?
Yes. They turned it over to the police, and the police somehow managed to lose it before it was properly logged into evidence.
Okay, this is where I have to push back on the institutional narrative.
Yeah.
With tenants reporting underground watch alarms and finding jewelry on the suspect's family property, how on earth did law enforcement not tear this property down to the studs 20 years ago?
I know, the disbelief is completely justified. But to understand why the police couldn't just, bring in the backhoes, we have to look closely at the Fourth Amendment and the legal threshold for a search warrant.
Right.
The Fourth Amendment protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures. To dig up someone's yard, police need probable cause. Hard, actionable, verifiable evidence that a crime was committed and that evidence is located at that specific targeted location.
But a tenant hearing a dead girl's watch alarm isn't probable cause.
In the eyes of a judge, no. A strange noise reported by a tenant might constitute reasonable suspicion, which allows police to knock on the door and ask questions.
But they can't start digging.
Exactly. It doesn't cross the threshold into probable cause to destroy property, and the lost earring is a catastrophic blunder, obviously. But once it's lost, it cannot be presented to a judge to secure a warrant.
Wow.
The tragedy is that law enforcement couldn't build a strong enough circumstantial case to get those warrants in the late 90s because of just, frankly, catastrophic early missteps in the initial days of the investigation.
And that's the most frustrating part of 1996, isn't it? Not just that she vanished, but how the campus police essentially gaslit the family for a week. They dismissed her disappearance as an unannounced vacation.
It's awful. Well, let's look at the timeline. It's Memorial Day weekend, 1996. Kristin is a 19-year-old freshman finishing up her first year at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo.
Right.
On Friday night, she attends an off-campus fraternity party. By 2:00 a.m., the party is winding down, and Kristin is found passed out on a neighbor's lawn, highly intoxicated.
And two fellow students step up to help her.
Yeah, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis, they try to help her walk back to her dorm.
And this is where Paul Flores inserts himself into this rescue party.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't even know her, right?
it's
But he intercepts the group. He tells Cheryl and Tim that he lives in a dorm closer to Kristin's, and he basically promises them he will get her home safely.
He does, and they go their separate ways. Paul and Kristin walk off towards the dorms, and she is never seen again.
So a college freshman disappears, leaving behind her money, her ID, and all her belongings. And the Cal Poly University Police Department just assumed, without any evidence, that because it was a holiday weekend, she simply took off with friends.
Exactly. Despite her family desperately pleading with them, stating this was entirely out of character.
Right.
The campus police delayed reporting her missing to the local municipal law enforcement for an agonizingly long time.
Which is insane, because in any missing persons investigation, the first 48 hours are the absolute most critical window. A week is an eternity.
It is an eternity. By the time real homicide detectives were brought in, the trail was completely frozen. Physical evidence from the dorm rooms was lost or, cleaned up. Memories faded.
But Paul Flores became the prime suspect almost immediately, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Because he was the last person seen with her, and he sported a black eye he couldn't adequately explain to detectives.
Oh, wow.
But without a crime scene, without forensic evidence, and without a body, the investigation just completely stalled.
And the Smart family tried every legal avenue available. I mean, they even filed a civil wrongful death suit against Paul Flores in 2005, hoping the deposition process would force some answers out of him.
Right. And what did he do?
He simply sat there and pleaded the Fifth Amendment to every single question asked.
It's infuriating.
It really is. And the desperation for answers grew so intense that in the early 2000s, there was this massive media frenzy trying to tie Scott Peterson to Kristin's disappearance.
Right, because Peterson was a student at Cal Poly around the same time. And following the murder of his wife, Latzie Peterson, the media was just eager to connect the dots.
Did that go anywhere?
No. Law enforcement thoroughly investigated the angle but quickly debunked it and ruled Peterson out. But that tangent illustrates how desperate the public and the media were to fill the informational void left by a paralyzed investigation. The official channels were deadlocked for over 2 decades.
Which brings us to the most fascinating pivot in this entire story. After decades of dead ends, dropped balls, lawsuits, and zero physical evidence, the catalyst for justice wasn't a sudden confession or like a new piece of cutting-edge DNA technology. It was citizen journalism.
It's incredible.
It was a podcaster named Chris Lambert.
Yeah, in 2019, Lambert launched a documentary podcast called Your Own Backyard. And this wasn't, a casual true crime recap show. Lambert conducted a meticulous boots-on-the-ground investigation.
And it blew up.
It exploded. It garnered over 30 million downloads. It fundamentally shifted the public consciousness and placed an unbearable, intense public pressure right back onto the local authorities.
The community even funded a new missing person billboard in Arroyo Grande to keep Kristin's face front and center.
Exactly. Lambert succeeded where institutional law enforcement failed because he bypassed the intimidation factor of a police badge.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. He created a sense of trust and urgency. He got people to talk. He unearthed new witnesses who had been holding on to fragmented pieces of the puzzle since 1996.
Wow.
People who were either too afraid to speak to detectives back in the day or who felt their small piece of information just wasn't significant enough to warrant a police report.
And he gathered those fragmented memories into a cohesive, undeniable narrative.
He did. Because Lambert brought these witnesses to light on a public platform, law enforcement suddenly had the fresh, actionable, probable cause they desperately needed to present to a judge.
Which directly led to the renewed search warrants in 2020 and 2021.
Exactly.
And when investigators finally executed a search warrant at Paul Flores' home in San Pedro, down in Los Angeles County, the evidence they uncovered was horrific.
It was.
The sources detailed that they didn't just find circumstantial ties to 1996, they found evidence of an active, ongoing predator.
Yeah. Detectives discovered date rape drugs and homemade videos showing Paul Flores assaulting young women.
God.
And this discovery opened the floodgates. It led directly to the testimonies of 2 women who bravely came forward to state on the record that Paul had drugged and assaulted them in the years since Kristin vanished.
Which completely dismantled the defense's narrative that Paul was just like a harmless, awkward college kid who was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Absolutely. It established a chilling pattern of predatory behavior. The prosecution successfully argued that in 1996, Kristin's murder occurred during an attempted rape in Paul's dorm room.
And the legal system finally caught up to reality. In October 2022, a Monterey County jury convicted Paul Flores of first-degree murder.
Finally.
Yeah. In March 2023, he was sentenced to 25 years to life in state prison. And the sources confirm that his subsequent appeals claiming an unfair trial have systematically failed.
Right.
As recently as early 2026, the California Supreme Court denied his petition for a hearing. So, barring federal intervention, he will not be eligible for parole until at least 2047.
The man responsible is finally behind bars. But looking at the broader legacy of this case, it extends far beyond a single conviction or true crime headlines.
It does.
Kristin Smart's tragedy fundamentally rewired how universities handle student safety in the state of California.
Let's talk about that, because the initial botched response by the Cal Poly campus police highlighted a dangerous systemic problem.
Yes.
You had university police departments attempting to handle serious felonies internally, often just to protect the institution's public relations image.
Which is horrifying.
Yeah.
But the outrage over the lost week in 1996 led directly to the passage of the Kristin Smart Campus Security Act of 1998.
Which is a vital piece of legislation that literally strips universities of the power to decide if a crime is serious enough to report.
Exactly. The law mandates that all public colleges and publicly funded educational institutions in California must have explicit written agreements, memorandums of understanding with local municipal police departments.
So if a violent crime occurs or a student goes missing, the municipal police department with jurisdiction over homicides and major felonies must be brought in immediately.
Right. Campus security can no longer sweep a disappearance under the rug or delay an investigation by assuming a student is on an unannounced vacation.
Yeah, jurisdictional turf wars and period concerns are legally prohibited from getting in the way of a time-sensitive investigation.
It is a powerful protective legacy for Kristin.
It truly is. But as we process this latest May 2026 update, the soil tests confirming the body was moved, cementing the reality of a multi-decade family conspiracy, it really leaves you with a profound question about the evolving nature of our justice system.
It does.
For decades, we relied exclusively on institutions to solve crimes. But in this case, institutions failed, and a podcaster with a microphone and a dedicated audience broke a 25-year-old mystery.
Yeah.
If citizen journalism can uncover witnesses and generate the probable cause that trained detectives missed, what does that mean for the thousands of cold cases currently sitting dormant in police files across the country?
That's a huge question.
Are we entering an era where institutional justice is no longer enough? And solving a crime requires the leverage of a viral audience. It's something to think about the next time you hit play on a true crime story. Until next time, thanks for taking the deep dive with us.